Welcome, one and all, to the All the Right Moves, a limited series from the Director's Chair Podcast Network about the filmography of Edgar Wright. I'm your host, Trucker Andy, and with me today is the founder of the Director's Chair Network, Ryan Rebalkin. Ryan, thank you for being here today.
Dude, an absolute pleasure to be on. And I just got to say, I'm so excited you're tackling this and being a part of the network. Thank you so much, Andy.
Yeah, we're having a lot of fun talking about the films of Michael Mann, specifically Collateral,
Yeah.
over on your channel. And I offhand made a comment that I wanted to talk about Edgar Wright, and you were nice enough to allow me to do that. So here we are.
Well, and I appreciate that. In fact, if anyone's listening to this, this is my little plug here. You want to be like Andy, and you think there's a director that you want to tackle and add it to the network? Because that's what happened. It was natural, like, oh, I like Edgar Wright. I want to do his films. And I'm like, are you serious? And we talked offline. You were. So if you're listening to this and if there's a director you want to tackle and add to the network, please contact myself or Andy. We'd love to have you on. There is no limit to the directors that we'll cover.
Yeah. And I thought this was a perfect fit because the catalog is not too dense. I was willing to commit to the amount of films that Edgar Wright has made, and a lot of them are beloved to me. But this one, we have to start at the beginning. And I had never heard of this. And when I went to look at where to start, I found this and I went and watched it, and I have a lot of thoughts about it. I know you have watched it as well.
Yes.
This is 1995's Fistful of Fingers, which I had no idea this even existed. And I think maybe I know why it doesn't come up in a lot of conversation. But had you heard of this before I talked about it? No?
I thought Shaun of the Dead was his first film. I like film proper. Maybe it is. If you want to argue this, you could say Fistful of Fingers might be like his lost long demo tape that's resurfaced after he's become a big time director. But I look forward to talking about. It's an important demo tape, though. It is a one worth investigating.
Exactly. This seems to be a resume builder. That this is what a lot of directors, the way that Ryan Reynolds made that little Deadpool short to convince studios that of what the movie would end up becoming. This is Edgar Wright's proof of concept or proof of knowledge to showcase to producers or collaborators that he knows how to pace a film. He knows how to block a shot. He knows how to write and edit and all of these things. The only problem I feel like is that it is it's amateur hour basically from front to back is how. And I had to keep telling myself watching this. I was like, what are people looking at this and going, this kid's got gumption and like promise. That, and what am I seeing here on this screen that made a producer decide to take a chance on Edgar Wright?
Well, I don't know if I can answer that per se, because now we're retroactively looking at it as someone who is a very accomplished director and has directed some of my favorite films of all time. Of course, Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. I mean, those are just his trilogy of films. What's it called? What's it called again? The
Cornetto Trilogy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It makes no sense other than it's the same two actors, but I don't know how they exactly tie together. I'm not an Edgar Wright nerd, though. Shaun of the Dead, when it came out, it blew me away, and I can't wait to hear people's thoughts on it when you cover it. But I'm excited to cover this early demo film per se. Like you, I was like, what are we watching here? It's a YouTube link. I found the YouTube video because I when you said we're doing this film, I thought, is there a way I can rent this film? Can I? So, luckily, somebody put it up on YouTube. I don't know if you had another place to find it. Like, how are you going to watch it?
That I was concerned about that when we decided we were going to do this. I started going to Amazon Prime and Netflix, and it's unfindable. But luckily, maybe a fan is hosting it somewhere on YouTube, and that's exactly how
you can't buy it.
Nor should you.
Okay, well, you sounds like, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, this is an amazing film. Okay, take off how it, I don't know how should I actually ended up enjoying it much more than I thought I did. 5 minutes in, I was like, what are we watching here? This does look like obviously what it looks like. It's a VHS tape. It's filmed in 1995, which was 30 years ago. But I have to say, I'm impressed with 20-year-old Edgar putting this together with his teenage friends. And I laughed out loud at parts. I truly thought some of the gags were quite, I was almost jealous that a 20-year-old could come up with some very funny stuff. And granted, he's my age. He's a year older than me. So we come from the same school of film, comedy, Monty Python, Naked Gun. So this guy is obviously a Monty Python, Naked Gun fan.
You nailed it. That was one of the things that was in my notes as well. And just to back up just a little bit,
Please.
if you're watching this episode 1 of this limited series, the director's chair is more of a discussion. We're approaching this with the presumption that you've gone to YouTube and watched this already. So this is in a channel where we're going to explain the plot of Fist Fingers to you, even though we will talk about specific things in the movie. So if you're watching this now and you haven't watched it, just go find it for free on YouTube and then come back and you're going to have a better understanding of what we're talking about here. But it's very interesting to me that it's most fledgling directors, I would say, cut their teeth with low budget horror. And that is not
Sam
what
Raimi.
Right. And a lot of these people that I feel like are sister or like spiritual successors or contemporaries of Edgar Wright do operate in that genre. People like Robert Rodriguez, I feel like, is a one-to-one comparison to maybe Edgar Wright's, the way he cultivated his career. And but Robert Rodriguez made El Mariachi, and then that I read his autobiography, and he subjected himself to medical trials where he was sequestered to in a room and taking experimental drugs and being tested whether he was placebo or not while he was sequestered doing these medical trials to get money to make his movie. That's how he wrote El Mariachi.
Oh, wow.
Is the story of Robert Rodriguez, who, and unfortunately, I feel like Robert Rodriguez went on to make a slew of shitty movies.
How dare you? Spy Kids 2, Spy Kids 3 with Stallone.
Shark Boy and Lava Girl, anyone?
Oh, that was a love letter to his children. That was their story.
Okay, well, save it for them because I hate those movies. Whereas Edgar Wright went on to make movies I like just about all of them in one way or another. So
he's got a pretty good track record. I mean, this is the premiere episode, so to speak. So I don't mind if I'm not going to give my thoughts and feelings because people are going to cover it. But if you just look at his filmography, it's a pretty good run of films. I mean, the Hot Fuzz, of course, Shaun of the Dead, The World's End, and then they're like, hey, dude, you're a pretty fun filmmaker. Do you want to dabble in Ant-Man? Though he only wrote it, but the idea that they tagged him for that. And of course, Baby Driver. I feel like he doesn't take, like, he takes his time to do films, which I think it shows on the screen in the script. What do you think?
Agreed. And let's not forget Scott Pilgrim, which is arguably one of my all-time, maybe top 3 favorite films. Just that speaks to my soul on so many levels. And I don't know how I'm going to be able to talk about it in only one episode, but when we get around to Scott Pilgrim. This is, instead of it being a horror film where a lot of people seem to get their feet wet, this is a parody of spaghetti westerns,
right?
A la Sergio Leone and like Clint Eastwood style films. But
it really is a Clint Eastwood parody. At the end of it, this is there's no bones about it. This is alternate universe Clint Eastwood.
Right. And if it's Sergio Leone meets the Looney Tunes, it meets Bugs Bunny,
It's funny they bring up Looney Tunes. There was a couple scenes like, oh my gosh, obviously, again, we're the same age. He was raised in Looney Tunes. So Edgar and I think if we were to sit down and have a conversation about our growing up years watching TV, and we'd have so much Venn diagram of what we enjoyed because there's definitely Bugs Bunny type behavior in this.
Right. So you mentioned Monty Python. You mentioned Naked Gun, Zucker Brothers type of
Mel
things.
Brooks.
Yeah, these things are right, and that's really where I struggled with watching this, and I had to keep reminding myself that it was.
So you struggled. I gotta interview you a little bit. So you see, that's where I embraced it.
Yeah, well, that's why I gave it so much of a pass. But I wouldn't, not to skip to the end, but I can't see myself ever watching this ever again.
Okay, that's okay. Well, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to punch in the YouTube address, and watch this again. I'm glad I did, though. I'm glad I did because now I can say that I'm one of the few fans of Mr. Wright that I've said I've seen his first official film. I'm curious, though. You know better than me because you're going to talk about space, I think, at the end. But why the big break between this student film of sorts, and then how did he get Shaun of the Dead? Because that movie is so well done, and it almost feels like someone who's been doing movies for 20 years is Shaun of the Dead. So how did he get from 1995 to 2004 in that?
It's because of Spaced.
Oh, okay.
Which is why we have to talk about Spaced, and we will.
Okay.
Once we get through the slog that was Fistful of Fingers.
Nice day.
Say that again.
Nice day.
Once more for the cheap seats.
Nice day.
Well,
I know you're being like, you're such a nice guy. You really give people the benefit of the doubt, and I
don't know if that's it. I'll say this. There was some really good gags that I guess I envisioned. Okay, I'm going to pretend I was a multi-millionaire producer, and it's 1995. I've got money to burn. And let's say at this time I'm 50 years old and I'm watching this in 1995. And I see this young kid and he gives me this film. I kid you not, I would have said, I want to see this film done proper with proper film. Give me the right horses, give me all the things. And that's the thing is I get it, the quality is the home video quality. I watched it for the gags. I thought this should have been on the big screen. There's some legitimate gags in this film that are funnier than your Naked Gun films. That is some of it's funnier than your Monty Python. I kid you not. I actually genuinely laughed out loud. I thought, oh, that's clever. That's too clever for teenagers.
I had that thought as well, but mine was more when it comes to the humor of the film, and it is joke dense. But my reaction to a lot of it was, oh, that's funny. I get it, and not actually laughing. Which is, if you tell a joke and somebody goes, "That's funny," and that instead of actually laughing, that's a different version of humor. That's more like my wife being polite when I tell a joke, as opposed to somebody actually thinking what I said was funny, which was the way that I digested a lot of this humor. But to what you were saying about let's take this, let's go from Evil Dead to Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. Yeah,
let's go from El Mariachi to Desperado with this
exactly
concept. Let's do it with all the right equipment, all better writing, better editing, and a better cast. Because I didn't like the lead. I thought the villain and the hero should have switched. But that was more like a good villain, a good movie needs a good villain. So maybe they just
Squinty,
did like
Squinty,
a Keaton Nicholson Batman kind of dynamic where the strength of the movie was in the antagonist.
Yeah, the lead, I kind of agree. I like Squinty. And okay, do we want to talk about the controversial psychic subject?
Yeah, we can bring it up, but remember, this is 1995, not 2025.
Okay, well, I'm not going to be an apologist, and that's not my intent. And I'm not going to say, yes, of course, yes, folks. White people don't put on brown face paint and become a different nationality. Like, we know it. Let's get that out in the open. We understand that you don't do that. But what I will say is they did it on, like, it was so obvious. They had this young actor the gag was he was only painted brown from his neck up. The rest of his body was white.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think that's part of the gag because here's the thing, they're gagging what was. Hey, look, this was before Tropic Thunder, so I think they should get a not they should get a pass. The same way Robert Downey got a pass because this was pre-Tropic Thunder. This is where I give Edgar some real credit here for some originality because they are making fun of a time when actors did put on darker makeup to become Native Americans in Western films. This was a real thing, and then other nationalities. It was so common that nobody batted an eye. It's like, okay, well, you have an American actor playing an East Indian person. We have I was like Jerry Lewis playing a Chinese person or whatever it was. Like
David Carradine and Kung Fu.
Right. Yeah. So, but that's what they were doing. That was the commentary. Is like here we have a very obvious white person with putting on the cliche Native American voice, and then throughout the film, he has it's the classic like mystic ability.
Yeah.
Sorry, there was a scene where they were having the big shootout at the end, and there's a sign that says like "caution, loose rubble," and so he starts doing the war cry with his mouth in hand. Totally, yes, inappropriate. The idea that he's going to make the rocks fall, like he's one with nature, but nothing fell. The whole world shook, but no rocks fell. This is see, you're laughing. I was watching this thinking this is actually it's very highbrow and but that's the commentary is this is wholly inappropriate to the sense, but this is what films did.
Sure.
Like Native Americans were one with Earth, and they had this and they're always so calm, and they come in the last moment. They're kind of guiding the poor stupid white man through the wilderness, and but I thought that was pretty smart. Again, from someone like Edgar, who I guess watched Unforgiven and these movies and Dances with Wolves, and they took the mick out of it with this commentary.
Sure. And we have to remember that this is 1995 England. There's not Native Americans in England for a 20-something Edgar Wright to cast in his film. So it also leans into that sort of version of the joke. So,
but if they did it today, yes, they would. Yeah, that's the thing. You would then cast somebody who was actually a Native American, taking the mick out of stupid white people doing this with their roles, making them seem mystical and all that stuff. So you could do this film today, but you'd have to cast obviously appropriately.
Right. And it's a lot of cleverness that goes into, well, our lack of budget. What are we going to do? Let's parody the horses from Monty Python.
Yeah.
And a lot of the signage and the Bugs Bunny stuff. And one of the things when you said it's almost too clever, that when the horse goes off the cliff and it says edge of cliff, and then it pans to the right and it says edge of frame. It's like, it's a movie-making joke that's almost too clever to be in this movie, but that was maybe one of my favorite jokes.
And I knew they were going to do the Monty Python. I knew it. I said, they're going to go on a horse. They're going to do something a nod to Monty Python. And I will give this showcases Edgar's ability as a filmmaker. So even though they're running with the horses, they're in a horse costume, and the characters or the actors are running, I squinted my eyes a little bit. Hear me out. I kind of blurred my vision to watch their angling, or Edgar's angling of the horse riding chase with him and Squinty Eye was actually really well done. He had at an early age, he has a knack for direction and setting up the frame. What do you think of it? So even though it's a funny horse chase, I actually envisioned real horses here, and I was like, he actually has a knack for doing this. I really hope he reinvestigates this film.
That would be interesting if he did. Maybe I wonder what he thinks of this. Because I'm sure when he talks about recommending things from him, I mean, maybe he never does, but if somebody would have said like his a relative that doesn't know anything about him, and they're like, "Well, where should we start with your catalog?" He's never going to say this, but
Right.
I wonder if he does romanticize the production of this film as a young man, and
Oh,
wonder
he must.
how, like, what he would do different now to make it better when he watches this, because he wants it to be Blazing Saddles. And
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
there's another movie called Hundreds of Beavers that came out in 2024 that
Oh,
is virtually silent and virtually all green screen except for the actors who are in like mascot costumes as beavers, and it's really insanely good. And
really?
when I watched this, it reminded me of that, but not as good. So
Mm,
that's a problem. That's my fault for assigning expectations to something that I shouldn't. So, and I'm also going to say this that might chase a lot of people that are watching this away. If you're a fan of Monty Python, I never was. I don't. It's
okay. Well, that's
it's not my thing, and uh, so a lot of the gags where I was just like, oh, this reminds me of Monty Python, something I don't enjoy.
okay. Well, no, no, I appreciate it, and then I think the listener would appreciate your angle, and that's fine. That's your journey as a comedian and or comedy movie stylings. Uh, I was raised on Python, so that's my kind of humor. Absolutely, that British humor. It's absolutely ridiculous, and I kind of like the ridiculousness of the Naked Gun of the Monty Python. It shouldn't be funny, and that's when it's funny. And I don't know why that makes me laugh, because it's like I get the joke. I like, oh, I see why you did that joke, but it's so bad it's good. But it's also very clever. There are so many jokes. I got halfway through the film, like I should start writing things down, because there's like, oh, remember that joke, remember that joke. There's one that stuck out to me that was really good when, the Native American's name is Running Sore. I love his ex girlfriend's name was the Yanks with fists. So it's like,
Good. It's Yanks with a fist.
Do you know her?
Know her? I've been out with her.
that's terrible. See, well, because that's a play on words for the Dance with Wolves was stands with fists. That's the joke. It's okay. Anyway, so when he's being taught how to shoot a gun and he's doing practice, and we see him quick drawing. He's missing the props that they're putting up, like it's a watermelon head or whatever it is. And then we see him like you see the watermelon explode. Oh, he's improved, and the guy with no name says, "Well, that's you got to go a little bit further back next."
And again.
Fast enough.
Good one. Now just a little further away.
You see now he's standing right next to the watermelon. Like the idea that he was right there when he blew up the watermelon. I love those clever little gags. We're led to believe as viewer, oh, he's getting better at his aim, but no, we find out later he was literally standing right next to the watermelon. That it's stupid. Why is that funny? But it is. I found myself constantly surprised by obvious humor working so well. Maybe it's just been a long time since I've seen that kind of slapstick comedy that I enjoyed growing up with.
Sure. And I'm a big fan of Looney Tunes and
Sure,
Naked
fair
Gun.
enough. Yeah,
Did you happen to see the new Naked Gun?
I heard that you went.
I won't
I
shut
haven't.
up about it.
Is it good?
It is. There.
Okay, I look forward to it then, because I love the Naked Gun films. I mean, say what you want about OJ, but he was really funny in those films.
It's true.
You could say he really killed that role.
Yeah. Yes. I OJ is beloved. That's why things took out for OJ the way they did, because he's
I, I,
here in Buffalo, upstate New York.
all right, yeah. I like to believe that OJ covered for his son, that his son committed the murders, and OJ took the fall for him. That's the narrative I go with so I can still watch the Naked Gun.
Right. And if you enjoy that type of humor, if you enjoy Monty Python,
Yeah.
and if you enjoy Looney Tunes, you will find value in this film. And obviously a lot of people did see the potential and the value in it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's great. Right? Otherwise, we wouldn't have Shaun of the Dead. We wouldn't have Hot Fuzz. So it's definitely, because this is another thing that I realized why this is findable. Why maybe people, because when Spaced came out for 2 seasons, and then Shaun of the Dead exploded in
Exploded.
popularity.
Yeah.
Then people are anxiously awaiting Hot Fuzz, and in the meantime, what is there to find other than, after I've watched Spaced twice or 3 times and watched Shaun of the Dead 10 times, what's left except this? When that was the only other thing as an Edgar Wright fan to go and find, I'm sure a lot of people saw this, and so it was nice to have in the catalog for that reason. There's just one more thing to maybe, as a hidden track in the filmography of Edgar Wright. You can go see him at his roots and how he cut his teeth in making films.
How did he? Do you know how he connected with Simon Pegg?
I have to
I don't
assume.
mean to put you on the spot, but
I don't know that specifically, except that Simon Pegg. I mean, this is probably a good time to start talking about Spaced, because this is the Edgar Wright Players is
okay.
where the pedigree of Spaced versus Shaun of the Dead. I'll just say, as let's wrap up our thoughts about Fistful of Fingers, and then we should
Okay.
probably start talking about Spaced at this point, because that's really where the popularity and of Edgar Wright starts. It's certainly not with this, but I just to talk about the end of the film a little bit.
Sure.
They do a reference to Once Upon a Time in the West and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And when they started bringing up those movies, I was like, oh yeah, those are cool movies. I should go watch those. So you could see the influence of the Westerns there. You could see the influence of Monty Python, and where Edgar gets all of his comedic sensibilities. And he is very funny. He's very clever. And that's really what shines through with Fistful of Fingers.
Okay, I'll also add regarding the end sequence, because they're talking about how the final shootout between Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, like how that ended, and they had these characters come in with the faces of the actors and from that film, and they got shot within this film. But what it showed me is Edgar Wright comes from the school of, and you could almost argue he wrote and or created this around the same time Pulp Fiction was released in 94. Now this was released in 95, but I dare say I think this movie would exist without Quentin Tarantino ever existing. I want to make this clear. I'm 99% sure that this was an independent thought exercise and creation of Edgar, independent of on the other side of the pond with QT and his journey with he's another independent filmmaker who loves movies, and his love of movies showcases in his films, where you have that fourth wall dialogue about films and movies. And the Scream franchise is also a nod to that. Like I love horror films. I'm making a horror film about my love of horror films. And now that's Edgar doing this. And that's what makes Edgar a pioneer, is he is breaking that fourth wall throughout this whole film, talking about what makes these other films so great, but he of course parodies it. And that's his love letter, is through humor. Is you can tell that he truly loves spaghetti westerns, that he loves the Clint Eastwood films. You can't parody something that you don't enjoy. It's not making fun of, like mocking, oh, stupid western tropes. The idea is he's seen so many of these films that that's his love letter to the films, with his humor and clever writing, from all these jokes and gags or things that he's enjoyed. So he's incorporating, and I'll give him credit too for taking that town, or sorry, an area of England. There were legit moments where I allowed myself to be in the West. Like he was able to really tell a story or setting in England and make it at times seem like I'm having a story in the Old West. And I think that just again, now with the way he is now, he's going to do Running Man coming out. I can only imagine with the budget that he has now, the kind of stuff he can pull. So I'm really excited to see what he can do in his bag of tricks with almost an unlimited budget and crew and camera work and stuff. I guess I have I don't know. This movie endeared me. I enjoyed it much more than I thought I was going to enjoy it. And I truly laughed. I was ready to say, oh, this is going to be self-indulgent. Look at me. I'm going to be a film guy, but I was like, oh,
Yeah.
he has a vision and a love of film. Oh, back to the Butch Cassidy is what I'm getting at. He's talking about the film within the film that Quentin does. And so it's the same idea of, you can tell he loves film, and that shows in his filmmaking. I think that's the key, is like, I want to make a good film because I like films and I want people to like films. So I think, I'm becoming a bigger fan of Edgar just because of A Fistful of Fingers.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you're right. These are the category of contemporaries that are lovers of film.
Right.
We talk about Grindhouse and why his short for the trailer for Don't is included in that, along with Eli Roth and
You're right.
Rob Zombie to a lesser degree. But these guys are Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino,
Right.
a lot of this is the kind of stuff I loved watching when I was a kid.
Mhm.
And this Fistful of Fingers is definitely a kid making a movie because he's compelled to make movies because he loves movies so much, and these are the things that have influenced him and the type of film that he would want to see. He's making
Mhm.
something that he wants to see on the screen. So
Agreed.
that's the value of A Fistful of Fingers, is the potential and the passion and the writing, these charming little things that prompted everybody to take note of what Edgar Wright had to offer. So
Awesome. All right. So tell me about space. I mean, and I'm surprised I never watched this because I love Star Trek. I love science fiction and I love comedy, but I wholly missed this series.
that's clear because it's not about outer space.
Oh, I thought it was.
Yeah.
Right. Tim and Daisy are on the outs with their respective significant others. Meeting by chance in a coffee shop, they bond over their similar circumstances and the want-ads, with a lack of opportunities, professionally, romantically and financially. They hatch a Three's Company-style plot to rent a flat, pretending to be a professional couple, with neighbours and friends like Mike, Twist and Brian. It's all Tim and Daisy can do to keep up the charade and stay one step ahead of suspicious landlady Marcia. Whether it's botched house-warming parties, or will they won't they awkwardness, quirky Daisy and sardonic Tim have no choice but to become unlikely friends.
I'm an idiot.
It's fine. But the first thing I would say is, if you're enjoying early Edgar Wright and you're enjoying all of these films that he's done that are seemingly
is it a Western?
Almost categorically all good, with some critical exceptions.
Sure.
I enjoy virtually all of the movies, and Spaced is a beloved British sitcom that a lot of the things we've already talked about, why, like what makes Edgar Wright's voice as a creator and an artist, are on display in Spaced. Spaced being it's called that, I believe, because in England they call apartments flats, and they call, there's different terminology. I could be wrong about this, but Spaced is like there's sharing an apartment, because the concept for the show, if we're just talking about the series overall, you have Tim, who is played by Simon Pegg, and Daisy, who is played by Jessica Hines, and a lot of people that you will end up seeing go on to be in Shaun of the Dead and some of the other, specifically Nick Frost and Edgar Wright, or Simon Pegg.
Simon Pegg, yeah.
These guys are. Spaced is basically those movies done half an hour at a time for 2 seasons.
It's funny. I'm such an idiot.
Oh, you're
I
not.
th-
You haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it, but for some reason, because I just always associated Simon Pegg, his love of sci-fi, of course, being in the Star Trek films. I just thought for some reason, well, I did. If you asked me 10 minutes ago, I thought it was a like group of characters in space, and it
Yeah.
was sort of like,
Well,
why
I'll
did I
tell you,
think
Ryan,
that?
I can't recommend it enough. This is really a beloved series.
Okay,
A lot of people are all about it, and if you like that style of comedy that in Shaun of the Dead, if you just take
oh, I love it.
the zombie apocalypse out of Shaun of the Dead,
You're right. I got you.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of beats in that movie that are straight taken right out of space.
How do they
Specifically,
meet? That's what I don't, because it says here
great
the
question.
show was yeah, it says here the show was created by Simon, but it is directed by Edgar. So I wonder how they.
Okay. Well, they probably got paired up by a production company, and Simon said, "I wrote this concept," and they're like, "Let's see who we can find to direct it." Oh, here's this guy that has a lot of moxie and promise that made this Fistful of Fingers film. Let's see what he can do with. He did like an episode here and there of other things that I'm sure where he proved that he could handle directing a whole series before they handed this whole show running project over to him. So he did this episode of that and a music video or something like that, and prove that he could handle this. And then they're just like, okay, let's see what you can do with Simon Pegg's project. And then
Well,
they teamed up for the next 15 years or more.
okay, so it says here. I was going to say I sure wish there was some sort of tool that we could use where we can. I know I hate googling on the fly, but it's driving me crazy. So I'm like, how do these two like meet up in the business? So because of what they childhood friends? No. So in '98, writer actor Simon Pegg and Jessica were in the early stages of developing their sitcom Space for Channel 4. And they thought of asking Wright to direct, having fondly remembered working with him on the 1996 Paramount comedy Asylum. So they met on the show Asylum.
Okay.
So Simon and Jessica are, hey, this is great. Who do we think of? We're going to act and write this, but who's got the vision for this comedy? So I guess Edgar. He worked on this show called Asylum, which was created by Edgar Wright, and Simon Pegg wrote for that show as well. There you go.
Okay, well that makes sense. Well, we were talked in the episode about Collateral, how Michael Mann enjoyed working with Jamie Foxx and Jada Pinkett with Ali, or a movie that he did right before he made Collateral, and then when he decided to put that together, he wanted to work with people that he enjoyed working with, and that's how a lot of things get made.
Well, at the end of the day, if you get along with somebody and you're like, hey, that's the thing why you shouldn't burn bridges, right? Like, hey, we're getting along, and who could we collaborate with? Who do we trust behind the camera? So it's great. So good for this is interesting though. So Edgar does that Fistful of Fingers. And had Simon never existed, that's what I wonder about these things. Edgar is a very visionary guy. He has a great aesthetic behind the camera, but without Simon's writing prowess,
yeah,
like what would have happened?
that's true, because I have to assume they probably wrote Shaun of the Dead together, or Simon Pegg wrote
I think
it.
Simon wrote it. That's what I mean.
Right.
I think Edgar is the visionary guy. But Simon, so like you've got who's the writer for Elton John? Like whatever that like the.
I think Robert Hunter and Jerry Garcia.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one guy's writing the music, the other guy's singing it. Meatloaf. He's the singer. The other dude's the writer.
Yeah. So Spaced, I think, derives so much of its charm. While it's very formulaic. Blueprint in the sense that the first one starts with the main characters breaking up and goes into kind of a who's the boss, will they, won't they kind of territory. Now that they're living together, even though they're pretending that they're not together, will they actually end up together? And that is a cliche concept. And the breakup in the first episode, like Rachel on Friends running out on her wedding, or there's another show called Happy Endings where two of the main characters, one of them leaves the other one at the altar, and now they're still friends. Yeah, so there's this classic concept, but where the writing and the style of the show becomes unique is from Simon and Edgar. There's a lot more, let's say, I don't know this to be true, but this came out in 99, the series season
Right.
1 of Spaced. And in 94 and 95, you get Clerks from Kevin Smith,
Mm.
Mallrats. And I can't help but assume that a younger Edgar Wright, saw what Kevin Smith was doing with dialogue and fandom as a personality, with like the characters from Clerks and Mallrats talking about how much they love Star Wars and how much they love comics. And if you don't know anything of like what you know, and your pop culture references are your personality, and almost all that matters to a lot of people that hang out in music stores and hang out in record shops, and that it just becomes a voice of a generation. And that is kind of what Simon Pegg's voice is in Spaced.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
a lot of it is pop culture reference dense. And I think that people like that. People want to hear, oh, I've seen that. I enjoyed it as well. I'm cool
Right.
for liking that. And that is something that I feel like Kevin Smith cultivated
Mhm.
also as a guy that was bootstrapping making films. And
Right.
I have to think that Edgar Wright saw that happening and saw what Robert Rodriguez was up to and decided that he was going to just, I want to be a filmmaker. That's something that Kevin Smith said in he does a lot of those TED Talk kind of
Right. Right.
appearances. His sister said to him, why aren't you making a movie? He's just, oh, I don't know where to start. And if you start writing a script, you're a screenwriter. If you start making a movie, whether
Right.
you're successful or not, at it or not, that's what you're doing. That's who you are. That's what you're
I'm a podcaster, not
right. Yeah.
successful.
Look at me. I'm a podcasting genius. So when you look at somebody doing that, it's inspiring. And I
Mhm.
feel like that he got a lot of inspiration from those kind of creators like Quentin Tarantino and so on. Everybody that we've discussed up until this point.
And I should note, and it's interesting, the two directors that I've done on the network so far, Edward Zwick and Michael Mann, they both, for the most part, have written the movies they've directed, or they're key writers. If not Michael Mann for sure, Edward Zwick was definitely did a few of them, but he had a collaboration, or he would, even if he didn't get the credit, he was a big part in the writing.
Mhm.
So it's just interesting that that's the same with Edgar Wright. Is yes, he has written every one of the films that he directs. He is credited as a writer / co-writer, whether it's with Simon Pegg or it seems like Michael Bacall is one of his writing partners, because him and Michael did Scott and Pilgrim, and they're doing The Running Man, for example. So they're writing partners with Pegg as well, doing a lot of these films. So I just find that interesting that, yeah, to Edgar's credit as a director, he's also the storyteller, screenplay or dialogue. I bet he does the dialogue and stuff like that. He definitely has that comedic type ability.
Yeah, I'm going to pay attention to this as we start digging further and further into this catalog about who he worked with on specific projects, because it does seem like people just have a certain chemistry when they work together that is what goes on to make projects successful. Rick and Morty comes to mind. Dan Harmon and
it's got Justin Roiland. And
Thank you, Ryan. Justin Roiland has this manic, high concept type of thought process that leads to a lot of scenarios that allow Dan Harmon's writing to shine. Like,
I see.
Harmon has a lot of strong grasp of what the writing process is and what makes a good story, a hero's journey, as well as a brilliant sense of humor and a brilliant voice to write with. Whereas Roiland has this high concept manic energy, and when you put those two things together, it creates magic. And that is probably true of Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg and some of these other people that you've just brought up that he works with. So I want to keep an eye on the certain projects that have those ingredients that add up to successful Edgar Wright things, or maybe like some of the other ones that I'll get to when we start getting into the other stuff. Maybe
I can't wait to get our. Oh no, I keep thinking he directed Ant-Man. He didn't. So I can't wait to get our first Marvel film on the network, but that's not true. He only wrote Ant-Man. He didn't direct it. I wonder what the first Marvel film will be on our network.
Can you imagine? That would have been so amazing. Ant-Man did go on to be
pretty popular.
Yeah, it turned into a street level hero with a different tone, not godlike powers, but it was more of a caper movie, and it was definitely a different thing that probably allowed them to greenlight Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like people don't need to know that it's Spider-Man and Captain America and all these high level things for this to be a successful movie.
Right.
But I really would have liked to see Edgar Wright direct that. I have to think that a lot of the work that he did on it did go on to be included in that movie and be why that was successful. They just had some kind of professional falling out where he just couldn't. Maybe it was scheduling. Maybe it was,
or he was working on Baby Driver right after, so he might just been busy with because that was his next film. Right after writing that, he works on Baby Driver, and then
it's so fickle. The big blockbuster, like big studio stuff, when contracts come into play and suddenly Paul Rudd's not available till this date and Edgar Wright's already committed to Baby Driver, so he just physically can't be there to helm the project because of contract negotiations. But they take all of the pre-production stuff that he did, pay him for it, but take his name off of it, because it does seem like an Edgar Wright movie when you watch that.
Oh yeah, he was supposed to. You're right. Sorry, he was supposed to direct it. That's right.
Yeah. So.
Interesting. Yeah. Well. Yeah. It would have been interesting, but I'm kind of it's kind of like it keeps him pure a little bit that he hasn't done it official. If that makes sense, like you know what I mean? Like
A lot of people, it's turned a corner where a lot of people are so sick of it, and it would be a shame for everybody to think of Edgar Wright the way they think of. Maybe
sorry, I totally forgot. My apologies. I totally forgot that he was originally signed on to direct. That's right.
Yeah, because that was another point I wanted to make about Space. Do you see what Edgar Wright could do with that show, and then you look at the Russo brothers who did a lot of their earlier work with the show Community. Not to tie everything into Dan Harmon again.
I was going to say,
the Russo brothers are directing Dan Harmon's writing, and then suddenly they're quarterbacking all of the most successful Avengers stuff that everybody loved. And so maybe it would have been good for Edgar Wright to do that, but
then
he'd be directing, Black Panther 3 or something.
Oh, God.
Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that. I'm glad I'm actually, I want to kind of hear your thoughts before we close on your excitement, if any, about his covering The Running Man.
I couldn't be more excited. When I initially heard that they were redoing it, I didn't think it was a good idea. And one of the things I know about the Schwarzenegger film versus the novel, which is Stephen King's pen name, Bachman, Richard
Bachman, yeah.
But is actually Stephen King.
Yeah.
I know that there are huge departures from the plot of the book to the plot of the film. And I saw the film first, not knowing any of that.
Okay.
And I learned about the novel much later. So I feel like there's a way to make another version of that plot in a new way and I think that Glen Powell, the star of the new movie, is probably one of the more compelling leading men that is making films right now. So I think that is a good choice. I think Edgar Wright directing is never a bad choice.
Right.
And I'm very excited for that movie. So
I agree. I haven't watched the trailer because I'm one of the I don't watch trailers. So
really?
Yeah, I don't watch trailers unless I'm at the movie.
I'd sit down and I'll just put on a YouTube channel that is all trailers and just what's coming out in the fall, and I just watch all the trailers for like a half hour straight. But that's just me. I know a lot of people don't want things to get spoiled for them.
Yeah, it's not so much the spoiled person. Like not so much the spoiled, but yeah, that like I don't know what I haven't seen a Naked Gun trailer, so I actually don't know any gags, zero. So when I go and see it, I don't know one single gag. I just saw Weapons in the theater recently. Never saw a trailer. Didn't even know what it was about. All I heard is that it was good, and you should go see it. So I'm like, oh yeah, I heard it's good. I'm going to go see it, and I did, and it's good. You should go see it.
Okay, I do want to see it. I haven't seen it yet. I don't really know a whole lot about it, but I have seen the trailer.
Yeah, and then same with the Running Man. I was like, oh, I'm a big, of course, Arnold fan. It came out when I was young, so I was like, but I say all this knowing that I'm a huge Stephen King fan too. So I'm betting, without seeing the trailer, I'm betting it's more faithful to the novel, and I'm also betting when Stephen King wrote the story, he didn't have Arnold Schwarzenegger in mind. Like that's not the character that he wrote or the physical description. It was this huge hulking mass of a man. So Glen Powell is a great actor, great leading man. And so I'm very curious to see how it's done, and I'm curious and hopeful that it falls closer to the source material. So this is what I hate when people say, "Oh, they're redoing." No, they're not redoing the Running Man. You can almost argue they're doing the Running Man maybe proper from the book.
Yeah, that's not a bad way to think about this new one. I think that it's going to be good, but I do have a special place in my heart for the original.
Oh, of course, with Arnold's always fun, but
since we're still talking about Edgar Wright, you look, and maybe this is why he decided to do this. And I don't know if it's going to be. I don't specifically remember how close to the book the movie is, but the way that Scott Pilgrim has the different boss battles with the different X's and the hitmen of the Schwarzenegger Running Man, all those gimmicks that each of the villains have, the fireball guy.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun to watch his version of that. That's right.
So it seems like it's right up Edgar Wright's alley.
Good call. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, because there's all these different kind of like levels of a video game almost that the characters go through. So I think Edgar's gonna have a fun time visualizing that on the screen. I think. Yeah.
So we can look forward to that. And if you are watching this now, the series is planned so that this limited series of Edgar Wright movies is going to conclude with the release of The Running Man. So that will be the last movie that we talk about this right after it.
For now.
Yeah, I know. Until he makes another movie.
Absolutely.
So I am very excited about this. I'm very glad that you came up with the idea for me to do this, and that the Director's Chair Network is giving other people a chance to talk about movies that they love. What other, why don't you plug some more of those things that people are adding to the channel?
I certainly will, Andy. We did not plan on that, but thank you. Okay. So right now what we have on the network is I've completed Edward Zwick's films, but it was just announced that he's doing a Western, which I'm thrilled about. Yeah, so I'll be covering that. But his filmography is completed. I'm almost done Michael Mann, so I'm doing that one right now. John Hughes has been covered on the network. It's almost done. That's hosted by Katie. My other host that's on the network, Craig, he has done Brian De Palma, most of his films. So the thing with his is it's a little bit different, which I kind of like. He just keys in on a certain scene from each film, and him and the co-host talk about a big scene from the film.
Yeah.
But they cover, that's what they've been doing with Brian. Again, when people come on the show, if you're thinking about coming on the network, I don't tell you how to run it. The idea is you're just focusing on a director, and I do it in order. I think that's how you're doing, of the films that they did in order. That's how I'm doing it. I want to hit them all. But lastly, we have David Fincher is coming on the network. That's going to be hosted by a guy named Seiko. We have Sam Peckinpah coming onto the network. That's going to be hosted by a guy named Scott. And then we have another Scott coming on the network who's doing David Fincher. So the network is growing, Andy.
Wow. Yeah. That's very exciting. Lot of, I look forward to hearing people's takes on those films, and I look forward to talking more about Edgar Wright but I would be remiss if I didn't mention the worst of the best. I thought maybe when we get to the end of this, we could decide the worst Edgar Wright film.
Oh,
Maybe we wouldn't talk about Fistful of Fingers.
yeah,
Leave that one off of the list just because it's not a professional production.
That's fair.
I'll plug my show, All Apologies Podcast,
Yes.
where we talk about celebrity apology tours and make fun of that. I do that with my brother Joe, and I will offer the apology that I forced you to watch maybe the worst movie.
Stop! I legitimately had a good time. I do not accept your apology because I had a blast watching A Fistful of Fingers. Go watch it, folks, on YouTube.
But I always bring Ryan on for all these very divisive and conversations. So if you want more Ryan on All Apologies, he did Mel Gibson and Marilyn Manson.
Easy characters to talk
easy
about.
Subject matter to talk about. So go check out All Apologies. Go check out Worst of the Best. And if you are thinking about missing next week's episode, don't